What's up guys, Carmine here, back again, once again, to talk some House of Late Dragoon, and we have some interesting Season 3 news, and judging by how you feel about the state of the show currently, you'll either be very skeptical or hopeful, because showrunner Ryan Condal has dropped some tidbits here and there from Season 3 that, in my opinion, didn't really reassure fans that Season 3 would be better than Season 2, or that they learned any lesson from all the criticisms. But Condal did tease 4 major events coming down, and a special episode going outside the norms of what people would expect in a traditional television show. But we're going to be talking about all that and more in today's video, so you know the drill. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that crap, and let's just jump into it. So House of the Dragon had a panel at the Emmys FYC panel on Thursday night, and it was quite interesting. For those of you who are wondering, FYC means for your consideration, and they're basically glorified advertisements by the studio to push a film or show of theirs for awards consideration. Season 1 of House of the Dragon had one a few years back, and the one thing about that to note is that George R. R. Martin was in attendance there, but he didn't attend this one for Season 2. I'm sure someone is going to mention that George was busy for the premiere of In the Lost Land screening in Santa Fe, and sure, why not? But I find it interesting that George, with as much pull that he has, couldn't reschedule the event, but maybe I'm overthinking it, and it may have nothing to do with his feud with Ryan Condal. So the panel featured most of the cast with head writer Sarah Hess and showrunner Ryan Condal, and this is what he had to say. The writing for Season 3 is essentially done, and we start filming in a couple of weeks. As the actors embody the characters, it actually becomes much easier to write in a more interesting way because you get to know everybody really well. For Season 3, there's much more shape and depth to it right out of the gate because you're writing for people you know. But he goes on to say, there are some major new characters this season, but 85% of them we already know who they were, and it just makes it much more rewarding to write. So, the new characters he's talking about, I noticed some people online were reading this differently, as in they thought that the new characters were 15% because the other 85 are ones we know, like Alicent, Rhaenyra, and Daemon, but the way I read it is that he's saying of the new characters coming in for Season 3, 85% of them we already know of, like Daeron or Dalton Greyjoy, also known as the Red Kraken, who was name-dropped in the first few episodes of Season 2. We know of them, but there will be some new characters we've never heard of before. I'm thinking maybe Black Aly, because, Cregan, Bloody Ben, especially him, considering we have one of the lads on screen already, why not the rest, and maybe a lord or soldier from the Hightower camp because we need Daeron to interact with someone. But I'm expecting us to get new characters right up until Season 4. Game of Thrones stopped introducing so many new characters when they hit the halfway point, which is something people behind the scenes pointed out back then, that by Season 4 or 5 they had about 25 named characters, and not enough of them were being written off. Which makes sense even now because in the books, George is still introducing new characters and storylines when he's desperately trying to end this in 2 more books. But I'm expecting House of the Dragon to keep introducing new characters, maybe not super important ones, but enough new ones to keep it going if they decide to do a continuation of some kind. But continue on with the article. When Darcy was asked about their desire to have Rhaenyra experience more action and wield a weapon in Season 3, they teased, "I got what I wanted, folks." That's when Condal nervously interrupted, "We're on very, very shaky ground here." He later informed the audience about some things they can look forward to in Season 3, including the fact that the goat is back. The goat is a reference to the haunted goat that Alice Rivers has roaming around. It's a nothing. This is something, for whatever reason, Sarah Hess mentioned a few times leading up to Season 2. But Rhaenyra wielding a sword? I very much doubt we're going to have a fight scene with her, considering the cost of giving the actress lessons, and even bringing in a stunt double for any type of scene like this would add on more cost to the budget, which seems to be insane, as we'll get into in a minute. But it would also be very dumb if Rhaenyra herself jumped into a fight at any point, considering she's the leader of her faction, and if she dies, then the whole cause goes up in smoke, which is something her council told her to her face last season. But I'm going to assume here that maybe some sword fighting lessons with Daemon, considering he wasn't there when that Kingsguard twin tried to kill her last season. And it's also another bonding moment for them, so I'm expecting that specifically. And judging by the last episode, it's clear that Rhaenyra will be taking King's Landing early on in Season 3, so maybe the sword tease here could be her beheading some people she believes are still loyal to Aegon, because in the books, she sends knights in search of Aegon, and maybe she loses her patience with someone and tries to behead one of them or something. I don't know. I want to lean more towards the lessons with Daemon, because her scenes in Season 2 with Daemon are some of the best the show has ever given us, and some of the best we've ever gotten in the entire franchise, Thrones included. But we'll see if they can tighten it up a bit. But continuing on, Condal here says, Season 2 is huge. Season 3 is huger in many ways. There are, by my quick count on stage, 4 major events from the books that we get to adapt and realize in 3 dimensions in this season. That's really exciting on a scope and scale perspective, and I think it's the thing the show does really well. The things that we're building are mind-boggling, but what I'm most excited about from a dramatic perspective is that we got to have a little fun this season, and there's a conceptual episode, meaning that it isn't in the traditional vernacular of what we've laid out as the structure of a House of the Dragon episode. It's very character driven, and I think it's really great, and I'm excited to see it rendered. So a couple of things here. Of the 4 major events we'll be getting, the first has to be Rhaenyra and Daemon taking King's Landing. That has to be episode 1, no doubt about it. The second is Battle of the Gullet, which has already been teased by both Condal and somebody at HBO. The third is probably the first Tumbleton battle, because we need the dragon seeds to do their thing. And the fourth, that's a tough one. I don't think they should do Butcher's Bowl just yet, because we still need Kristen Cole for Season 4. I'm thinking maybe Fish Feed battle between the Lannisters and the Rivermen forces, which would be a great way for us to see both Black Aly and Bloody Ben in battle. I know some people were pointing to the Battle of the Honeywine, and I'm expecting that in there somewhere, but kind of as a quick shot where Darren comes in and saves the day. It'd be a great way to introduce him as a character, because in the books, the Hightowers are having a tough time until Daron flies in and turns the tide. So it would make sense to have it in there, but not as a major thing. I'm expecting it to be an aftermath situation like Burning Mill in Season 2. Soldiers are fighting, and then cue inspirational dragon music with Daron coming in, and done. It kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You get your character introduction of Daron, and it looks like the country is at war. There it is. As for the conceptual episode that Condal spoke of, the way he made it sound, it felt like there would be an entire episode devoted to following one character, which, okay, fine. Because there have been shows that do that every now and then, where they devote an entire episode to giving us the backstory to somebody specific, backstory that is important to know about this person or these people for context going forward. Westworld did this with the Kitsuya episode, where it focused mostly on Ghost Nation and the character of Akecheta, and if they're going this route, I'm expecting it to focus mainly on Daron and where the hell he's been for the last 2 seasons. It makes the most sense. Daron is a dragon-riding Targaryen and son of former King Viserys. We need to know who he is, where he was, and why nobody mentions him in Season 1, later on in Season 1. I've also noted that some people online felt that Condal meant something different when he said conceptual episode, so feel free to let me know what you think it really means in the comments, but that's where my mind went to immediately, and I swear to God, if they do an episode focused on Alicent or Rhaenyra, 2 characters who got way too much screen time in Season 2 doing nothing, the show is cooked. And speaking of which, Olivia Cooke said that the relationship between Alicent and Rhaenyra is amazing and really beautiful. She noted, I've never been part of a character and something that takes on mythology of its own. I think that's really gorgeous, and I love how embracing a lot of people have been for our characters, because, I mean, Alicent's tricky. It's been gorgeous to play with the intricacies and just how layered and hard and sticky the relationship is now, especially in Season 2, but also at the deep relief and comfort they still find in each other. It's beautiful writing and really gorgeous to play that. It's also few and far between, because Em and I barely saw each other last season. We'd have stolen moments in the car park, and that's about it. Can we all agree that their scenes together were the weakest in the entire season and in the show so far for Season 2? Rhaenyra and Alicent were always going to meet each other again, and their first meeting in Season 2 was pointless. It was a way for the writers to transform Rhaenyra into a sympathetic person who doesn't want to go to war and order the deaths of people, but had to because the other side could not be reasoned with. It being all a misunderstanding was just... it just wasn't it. And then their second meeting where Alicent turns on her family, those were dumb decisions. Season 2 needed to be a break for those two because, again, in the books, they were always going to see each other when Rhaenyra takes King's Landing. Alicent and Rhaenyra's isolation in Season 2 and not being able to see each other was crucial, but then the writers forcing a meeting between them really destroyed how explosive their reunion would have been in Season 3 had they just stuck to the book material where they didn't meet at all before then. Whatever. To wrap this up, Darcy said, I think Rhaenyra kind of exists between 2 poles, Daemon and Alicent, and it was a challenge to go into a season where neither of those poles are easily accessible. You're aware of the broader pressure on the scene, and you know that it has to deliver on a certain level. The show tries to deliver dramatic scale within small spaces, and so that's a challenge. But I also cherish those scenes, so there's personal stakes there too. So I get what Emma Darcy is saying and how the show is set up on focusing on these three individuals. Ryan Condal did a podcast a while back where he talks more about the show being centered on the trio and how it all revolves around them, which I agree, but at the same time I disagree with. I think the show focused too much time on showing us these three, and as a result, we're trying to find stuff for them to do, most of which didn't turn out good. The Alicent and Rhaenyra meetings, not great. Daemon and Harrenhal took too much time to cook. Rhaenyra not doing anything at all, even her own counselors in the show were bitching at her. They really should have just focused on setting up other characters who were just as important, if not more so, but for whatever reason they were cut out entirely or just stuck on the docks. Poor Corlys. We'll be discussing more of this for the Game of Thrones podcast later on, so I hope you'll tune in for that. But guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let me know what you thought of all this down in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, it helps out a lot, and consider supporting us on Patreon or YouTube memberships. It's only $1 a month, and you'll get access to some exclusive content. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.